So the penultimate episode of The Boys Season 3 came out last night, and it was a very important episode, but in a very different way to last week's. Last week's episode was probably the most important episode of the show, and in terms of plot, it definitely moved the show ahead way further than maybe any other episode in the entire show. This was a very different episode in that it actually wasn't very plot heavy, there wasn't a lot of moving along the actual plot of the show, but we learned so much about all the characters that it is easily just as important as last week. We now kind of know a lot about Butcher's background, about even Black Noir's background, and that's kind of pretty huge that we haven't known a whole lot about them already. A lot of stuff we learned about Butcher this week had been sort of teased or alluded to in other seasons, like last season when we met a lot of Butcher's family. We kind of did hear hints about Lenny and what had happened with Lenny and with his father and all this stuff like that, but actually seeing it play out in this episode was so different and so unexpected, and I really did like it. I think that it really did help the story. It helped Butcher's character. I was really surprised with Butcher's decision at the end of the episode. To probably say kind of late now, but huge spoilers for The Boys Season 3 Episode 7, so if you haven't seen it yet, don't listen to the rest of this. But I thought that it was really interesting to still go with the decision that Butcher is going to hide the fact that the Compound V is very dangerous to Huey. I really did expect him to tell Huey, since we just had a whole episode kind of dedicated to how he kept seeing Lenny and Huey and Lenny so many times when we were seeing those kind of inside the mind of Butcher scenes. They kept doing this little switch between Lenny and Huey to make us really see that Butcher thinks of Huey as Lenny. So I was really surprised that Butcher still decided not to tell Huey about that unless it's already too late, and he sees that it's too late, so he doesn't want Huey to know that he's going to die no matter what, which I'm really kind of interested to see where they go with that. We're hardly going to have them die. We know for a fact that Karl Urban's back for Season 4 of the show because he's the one who just told us yesterday that Season 4 starts shooting in August. And I don't think Huey's going to die either. I feel like Huey's in the show for the long run. So I really am interested to see what they do with that and how they're actually going to get them out of this, because the way I kind of perceived it is that Butcher knows that they've taken far too much doses at this point. Butcher knows that if the 3 to 5 dose thing is legit, that they're already screwed. So maybe that's why he didn't tell Huey. But my original idea for what I thought the final was going to be was straight up going to be Homelander versus sort of everyone, maybe the Deep on his side, but I thought more or less it was going to be Homelander versus Soldier Boy and all that. But after the events of the episode where we found out that Soldier Boy is in fact Homelander's father, which I did see some people theorize that a couple of weeks ago, so I wasn't so surprised by that, because I was like, okay, people have kind of theorized that already. But my original idea for what I thought the final was going to be just straight up Homelander defeated in the final because everybody is against him. But I feel like it's going to be Homelander and Soldier Boy versus most of the other people. I don't really know where the Deep or A-Train are going to fall on that just yet. I feel like the Deep and A-Train, while they are kind of Homelander's bitches pretty much, I'm not really expecting them to straight up be interested in a full-on fight against so many other people. It's also very likely that Black Noir would fall on Homelander's side, considering we found out in this episode that he really does not like Soldier Boy. But now after today's episode, I really am kind of thinking where are they going to go with this. Now originally I did think that the final of this season was going to be the huge battle against Homelander that they've been kind of hyping up this entire show. Especially after last week's episode, I thought it was pretty clear that's where they were heading for the final of this season. But I'm not so sure anymore. I feel like because this episode was so focused on the backgrounds of characters and not really setting up a crazy amount for the final, I don't think we're going to get that huge battle in the final episode. I don't think we're actually going to be done with Homelander this season, and I originally thought that no way Homelander was going to kind of make it out of this season as still a very primary antagonist. I thought maybe he'll be taken off the board, but I didn't expect him to kind of be still the god hero that he loves to be next season. But now I feel like, yeah, we're still going to have a next season that is going to be quite similar to this season, and then the end of next season will be when the big final battle happens and we finally get rid of Homelander or whatever. Because I think that Season 4, Season 5 is going to be the end, probably Season 5, because I don't think that there's enough happened in the show yet to kind of justify Season 4 being the end. So I think Season 5 is probably going to be the final season. So I think we're going to get one season after Homelander is kind of dealt with. But the Soldier Boy and Homelander, it's just really interesting because it really does kind of completely change what I thought was going to happen this season. I also wonder what Newman gave to Homelander, what's that address for? I don't think we found out. They're kind of hiding that. So I'm interested to see what that is. That could be another ace in the hole for Homelander's fight against Butcher in that. But I mean, if Butcher and Huey can't take any more V, that's them off the board. So we really only have Kimiko with V. We've got Annie, maybe Maeve if Maeve gets saved. Speaking of the whole Annie Maeve thing, Annie being in the tower this episode really reminded me of literally exactly one season ago in season 2 episode 7 when Huey and Lamplighter came to the tower to rescue Annie. I thought we were going to have Annie discover that Maeve was actually in the tower or something. I don't actually know where they're keeping her. For some reason, I thought that maybe it is the tower, because the scene where Homelander was meeting with Maeve, it just felt like somewhere that could be a really hidden room in the tower or something. But I expected Annie to actually find Maeve and get her out of there. So I'm surprised it didn't happen. I'm just happy also, though, we got confirmation about Maeve being alive and stuff, because a lot of people have been saying, is Maeve already dead? I thought that no way they would have killed her off screen, so it's good to have that kind of confirmation. Speaking about kind of characters killed, I'm very surprised that A-Train is alive. I straight up thought he was dead. I don't know if I'm necessarily annoyed he's alive. I just don't know exactly where his story can go from here, because I felt like last episode was very much a cap on a lot of his story arcs and storylines throughout the entire show. Like him apologizing to Huey for Robin felt like kind of a natural end point to the Huey versus A-Train sort of thing. So to keep A-Train alive now, I'm not entirely sure where they can go with his story. I just thought, maybe they're going to do some really cool stuff. I just thought that it had reached a natural conclusion last episode, but I guess not. The deep stuff in this episode I also thought felt a little strange. I don't think it was needed. It was kind of just a lot of what we've gotten the last 6 episodes anyway, so I don't know why it was in this episode again. I know that a lot of people have been saying that the Deep is one of the weaker points of this season just because it's not really clear what his storyline is or where he's going. I've been fine with it, but this is definitely an episode where I kind of thought, I don't think we needed this scene. I don't think this needed to be in here. I didn't hate it or anything. I just thought it didn't really add anything to what was happening, and it felt like sort of a sidetrack to everything else going on. I want to talk about Black Noir real quick because we learned so much about his character, and we got a real kind of look into his psyche and into his head, and that was great. When we were seeing the whole kind of recreation of how Payback defeated Soldier Boy and sent him off to the Russians, I was not expecting that at all. I was kind of hoping that, even though the animation style was cool, that it would switch to live action at some point and we'd actually see it happen in kind of the same flashbacky way we did back in episode 3. But I'm still fine with it seeing like this because it was still awesome. It's also kind of interesting that we find out in this episode, basically, we kind of have been hinted at that Soldier Boy is not a good guy. Like, we've been hinted at that a lot. But this is the first episode where we actually get to see how brutal and how shitty of a person he really, really was. Because before we've heard him say things, but, it could have been a whole, facade kind of thing, where it's he says it to sound cool or whatever. This is the first episode where we've actually seen him do things on purpose that are really shitty. So it's kind of interesting that now they show us that after we've seen our characters kill half of the members of Payback. When we see them kill them, we're like, oh, well, look, they gave Soldier Boy to the Russians. Why do we care? Go ahead, Soldier Boy, kill them. But now it's like, oh, no, they were actually much better and probably in the right in this whole thing, and Soldier Boy kind of deserved what he got. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here now. I'm also interested to see next episode if the dynamic immediately changes between Butcher and Huey, if Soldier Boy's gonna fight them or something, like straight up trying to get back to Homelander, or if Soldier Boy's just gonna invite Homelander to where they're hiding and it's gonna be like Homelander and Soldier Boy versus Huey and Butcher, which that's bad news for Butcher and Huey because it took all 3 of them to just slightly kind of bruise Homelander. So for Soldier Boy to team up with Homelander now, it's probably not good at all. But yeah, I'm really interested. That's the thing about this whole episode, is that I really, really, really wish they double dropped this episode in the final, because I felt like, as enjoyable as this episode was, there wasn't enough to make me go, oh, I need to sit and think about this like last week. Like last week, I felt like I needed a break after that episode because it was so insane. This week, I didn't feel like I needed a break after. I just really want to see what happens next, which still means it's a great episode. The Kimiko and Frenchie stuff was great in this episode, probably my favourite stuff with them in the entire season. I thought they were great. Kimiko getting her powers back. I'm actually surprised with that. For some reason, I thought her powers had slightly returned, because the beating she took last episode from those Russian guys, I genuinely thought was a beating that meant she was sort of a super again, because it seemed like she was getting beat on in a way that would kill any normal person. So I guess maybe she just is stronger than most, even without the powers. I'm also confused on where the Nina stuff is going, because Nina obviously survived the last episode, so is she going to show up in the final, or is that set up for season 4 or something? Honestly, I wouldn't be crazily opposed to Nina being gone now and just not coming back at all, because she was definitely my least favorite part of the show. I really loved everything with Frenchie and Kamiko, but then when Nina started getting brought into it, I started getting it a little bit, okay, this might be my least favorite storyline of the season. But yeah, honestly, this is just a great episode for the characters. Like, we learned so much about everybody. The show, I honestly have no idea where it's going next, but I'm really excited to see where it does. But how did you feel about The Boys Season 3, Episode 7? What are you expecting, or what do you hope to see in the final of this season? And we're hoping to have 1,000 subscribers this year, so if you're not subscribed, please do so. It really helps out, and like and share and all of that, and I hope you have a great day.